This is a design that I sketched out a couple of years ago. Hi, I'm Melanie from Balloon Artworks. Inflate two 5-inch balloons with just one stroke of the Latex hand pump. So that's approximately 3 inches in size if you're using a sizing box. And then just massage the balloons, stretch the latex out to bring out the shine. And I'm using chocolate brown. And to make another one of these, connect your two duplets together to make a cluster of 4. I've created another cluster of 4 or a quad of mocha 5-inch balloons, and I've inflated these to 4.5 inches. So all these are inflated with 4 strokes of the Latex hand pump. And then just take one of the balloon necks, pull that up into that small cluster of 4 and wrap the neck around. So this is pretty much my standard base for my sculptures. The sizes of the upper cluster sometimes vary. Then connect a sand or a water weight to the base. And if you want to know how to make a sand or a water weight, I shall leave a link to that tutorial in the description below. Inflate a 350 to a 2-finger tail, then let some of the air out. You want this to be quite soft, and then put a twist into this balloon. Then you want a 5-inch balloon with just one stroke of air, one pump of air, and then just let some air out, okay? And tie that directly onto the 350, okay? And then you can just massage and stretch out the latex just to bring out the shine. Twist a bubble of about 9 inches or so, and then wrap that into the base. Give your balloon a little squeeze, and then twist another bubble to match this one. So just measure the two together, twist, and then wrap those two at the neck, at the nose. And then wrap that into the base. Okay, and then we can just snip off the end of this bubble, let the air out, and tie. Okay, so this is what you've got. I've inflated two 260s with 5 strokes of the Latex hand pump. I'm tying them together, and then I'm just going to tie these ends together as well. You can snip off these ends here and tie a knot. Okay. Trim away most of the excess. Push the sets of knots together, twist around and pass one loop through the centre of the other, and that's just going to lock everything in position. And then we can wrap these around the nose. Okay. Take an uninflated 260 and just tie that around the 260s. I've inflated a 260 to a tail of 2 fingers, and I want to make a section of beard that is approximately as long as the body. So depending on how long your warlock's body is, you need to roughly measure against the body. It doesn't need to be a tight spiral, because as we work, this spiral will unravel somewhat. But I do like to start off this way because it gives a bit of shape, I think, to the rest of the beard. Okay, and then with what's left, make another spiral and twist that in here, pass the knot, pass the tip through, and then tie onto that nozzle. Okay, so again, don't get too hung up about how perfect the spiral is here, because it will start to come undone as we work with the rest of the sculpture. With another 260, make a section of beard to match this one. Mine's a little bit large there, so I'm just going to shorten that. It's a little bit small now, so you just have to adjust until you get something that is roughly the same size. Okay. And then I can trim off this end and tie that together. And I can wrap the tails around here and tie together. Okay, so this is what you've got. And then wrap this into the nose area here. Okay, I'm using that little bit of excess from the 260 just to pull the bottom of that beard into the base. And then using another piece of 260, pass that through the loop there, behind the beard, and through the other loop here. So this is where your candy canes will come undone, will unravel. And then bring those sections of 260 back behind the beard that we secured at the front. And try and tie your knot here behind the beard so that will disguise the knot. And then with another 260, make another section of beard. I'm just, again, candy caning. Make sure this is nice and soft. And get as close as possible in size. It doesn't have to be exact. And twist. And then we can just snip off the end here. And tie the ends together. And then trim off the excess. If you can find one of the nozzles here, one of the necks, just wrap that into this next bit of beard, okay? Again, you're going to need a piece of 260, and for this section, I actually recommend you tie your 260 on to one section first. And I'll leave a bit of a tail here because I'm going to tie the knot onto that. And then pull the section of beard down behind the beard that we've already secured. Pull that through, pull it taut, and then pull through this section here. And I'm going to have a look at what I'm doing now. So now pull this back through here. Back this way, and then try and tie on to this section here. I'm actually going to go back through this section of beard again. I'm going to wrap that around just to secure it. And now I can tie these ends together. And you can trim away the excess and trim away the excess. I've got a 260 with a tail of 3 fingers, and I'm going to wrap that in at the top here. Whoops. I'm going to wrap that in at the top here. Just using the knot and nozzle. Okay, bring that down. I want this to form the arms, so I'm positioning in between these 2 loops of the cloak. I want the arm to come about 2/3 of the way down the body, approximately. Make a twist. Then pass the 260 through the centre of the body. So between the loops of the cloak, behind the 350 at the back, and pull through. So I want to be able to see just a small amount of arm here. And then twist another bubble pretty much in line with the edge of the cloak. Give your balloon a bit of a squeeze. Measure the loop up here, the bubble up here. So you want this bubble to be approximately the same length as this bubble. And then I'm going to snip the end and let out the air and tie. And then I can bring this up here behind 260s that form the back of the cloak. And then wrap that around. Okay, so if you've got a long bit of excess here, just hang on to that because we may well need that. I'm going to tie the 260 here at the bottom of the cloak and slightly to the back. Okay, so it's slightly to the back of the loop, and then pull that into the base, right the way underneath and through to the other side, and then wrap around. And then I'm going to use this other side here to wrap around the base of the cloak and pull that through and into the other side. I'm using a 260 to make some hands. So twist a bubble of a couple of fingers followed by another bubble of approximately the same size. Hold the 2 bubbles together, make a twist, and then wrap that knot and nozzle through the centre, and that pinch twists those 2 bubbles really easily. Give your balloon a little squeeze, make a flower petal loop of about 3 fingers, then twist, pass your balloon back through the centre of those bubbles. Okay, we can break the rest of this off, let that down, save this. And tie knot here. And make another one of these. And then we could just wrap the hands into this little bubble here, so this section here. And do the same thing on the other side. And I'm just tying 2 knots at the same point on the 260. So this is to create what we call a raisin. And just trim off the latex either side of those 2 knots. Place the raisin inside an 11-inch or 12-inch print balloon. And if there are lots of companies doing these print balloons, these animal print balloons, which are a lot of fun. If you can't get them, inflate your balloon, and then when your sculpture's finished, just draw on the stripes with a black Sharpie. Okay, I've fully inflated that balloon. It's around about 26 strokes of the hand pump, maybe a little bit more to fully inflate, but then let a lot of air out. So you want a balloon that's around about 6 inches or so, 6 to 6.5 inches, and then tie a soft knot. But you're going to need to tie a piece of 160 or 260 into the knot. Okay. And then roll that along. Push the air into the neck as much as you can, and then place your finger on top of the nozzle there, and you're going to push that into the base of the balloon. So once you can grasp hold of those knots, put a twist, and then wrap the 160 or the 260 around a few times. Tie a knot. And then I do like to tie a second knot when I'm using this technique. Okay, I'm just going to trim away the nozzle, and I'm going to leave these tails poking out. Take hold of the tails at the bottom. You've kind of got this dimple that disappears in here. If your tails have disappeared in there, you can usually just extract them. It's not too difficult. And then just take hold of this bit of excess here and tie the print balloon to it. I've inflated a 260 to a 3-finger tail. I've stretched it, so I've made sure it's nice and soft, and then encircle your print balloon with the 260. And then twist here, pass that knot and nozzle through that little twist that you've just made, and then twist a bubble, small bubble of 2 to 3 fingers, and then pinch twist that. So just pull it outwards, and as you pull it outwards, twist it around. Make another bubble of a similar size, do the same thing, pull it outwards and twist around. Okay, and then we can trim away this excess. And tie that into a knot. If you want to stretch this 260 out sideways, and pull it down slightly over the sides of the beard. Cut away approximately 3 inches from a 160. And then inflate a bubble of about 5 inches. And we're going to make some very small loops of just about a finger. To make another loop of a similar size. Don't worry if these loops aren't exactly the same size. And when you've twisted your second loop, wrap that around the first one. If you can find that knot and nozzle, just wrap it around a little bit. And we want one more small loop. Okay. And then at the end, just pinch out the end a little bit, twist a bubble here, and then press down on that bubble and it will go to the end. The little section will go to the end. Use the tails to attach this to the top of the wizard's hat. And for this particular design, I like to leave some of the green tails sticking out here. So if I've got any sections of 160, this is a great way to use up old 160s. Just cut them in half, approximately. And then I like to put the tip ends together with the nozzle ends, and then I will wrap all those into the bubbles at the top. I've inflated a 160 to a 4-finger tail, and I'm going to make 3 small loops of a couple of fingers, pass the knot and nozzle through the centre, and try and get the loops similar in size. They don't have to be exact, but similar is close enough. Okay, and wrap the 3 loops around one another. I'm now using a 160 in a contrasting colour, and I'm just going to wrap the tip end into those 3 loops to secure that. Okay. And then keeping the 160 taut, wrap and rotate the brown balloon, the 160, inflated 160, as you wrap that uninflated 160 around. It just helps distort the brown balloon, giving the impression of a bit of a gnarly staff. Okay, once you get to the end of your uninflated 160, make a twist, wrap that around a few times, and then snip off the end. And you have to be careful at this point that this section doesn't uninflate. So hang on to everything and tie a knot. And then tie a second knot, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so you've got a staff. Attach one of your pumpkins to the top of the staff. So just wrap that into the loops. And then take the end of the 160, just wrap that into the base, wrap it around in that figure of 8 motion. Because the staff is top heavy, you're going to need to secure the staff to the wizard's hands, okay? So I just got an uninflated 160, and I do like to just snip off the end of these. I just find it easier to work with. They don't start trying to inflate a little bit when you're trying to use these as effectively as a strap or a rubber band. And I'm just going to wrap the end into the wizard's hand here. Pass the 160 through the arm and through the side of the cloak. And you can tuck the strap just underneath that section of 160, pull that through, and then pull the 160 back the way it came and wrap it back into the hand here. And then trim away the excess. One thing I often like to do to finish off the base of a cloak is to inflate a 160, a bubble of perhaps 8 inches or so. Make a little V shape, and then I connect that to the base. Pull that up here, And someone did ask me a question about shoes, which I will address in more detail in another video. But this is one way of just giving a little bit more emphasis to the shoes. I tend not to be worried too much about highlighting shoes. I prefer to draw attention to other parts of the sculpture. But this is one way where you can just give a little bit more interest here. And also, if you find that you've got a bit of a gap here at the bottom of the beard, this is a way of just finishing off the cloak and the clothing and adding a bit more detailing to the shoes. I'm going to need to turn the sculpture to face me while I do this. So I'm just giving it a little whittle here, measuring how much of a bubble I need to make, and then twisting that section off and tying the end. And then pull the end into the base here, wrap it around, trim away any excess, and then if you just pull this outwards, it will just sit over the top of the shoes, and I think that just looks a little bit more finished. It looks as though he's got the cuffs of his trousers just sitting on top of his shoes. And then I tend to like to add another pumpkin.